Okay, well, it looks as if we're ready to start. So, hi and welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on what is certainly going to be a very interesting discussion. My name is Denise Drummond-Dunn, and I'm President and Chief Catalyst at C3Centricity. I'm joined on the webinar today by two colleagues from C3Centricity's partner, PhaseOne, Terry Villines, Vice President and Analytics Director, and Angelo Ponzi, Director, Business Development and Client Services. As way of introduction, for those of you who don't know me, let me briefly explain a little bit about my background and experience. I've always had a passion for people, the customers, consumers, and clients whose satisfaction and delight are what make businesses grow. I've worked in over 100 countries around the world, speaking to people in their homes, in their jobs, or going about their daily lives. This has helped me to understand the similarities, but also the differences between cultures globally. My career has been spent in IT, finance, and marketing for some of the top Fortune 500 companies, including Gillette, Philip Morris, and most recently Nestle. I like to think of myself as one of the new breed of marketers who combines creativity with technical know-how and the cultural sensitivity that is essential to regional and global business success today. I founded C3Centricity a couple of years ago to help all sorts of organizations improve their customer understanding. This enables them to build more profitable relationships with their customers and also means that the return on their information investments increases. Terry, Angelo, before we get into the meat of the webinar topic, perhaps you could also say a few words about your own backgrounds.
I'd be happy to. Hi, my name is Terry Villines. I'm Analytic Director here at PhaseOne, where I am responsible for overseeing the quality, accuracy, and resourcefulness of PhaseOne's work. We'll explain in detail a little bit later around our process, but in a nutshell, PhaseOne is focused on harnessing the power of communication or advertising for shaping attitudes and behaviors. Basically, harnessing advertising to build strong brands. I was project lead on the research we're going to be sharing with you today, and I look forward to discussing that in detail with you later.
Hi everyone, my name's Angelo Ponzi, and I'm the Director of Business Development and Client Services here at PhaseOne. My typical day really is servicing our clients, but also looking at aligning our clients' needs with our capabilities. So I'm always in search of new opportunities to make sure our clients are moving forward. I'm also in charge of business development, so that means, of course, I'm always looking for new client opportunities as well.
Thanks, Angelo. Thanks, Terry. Terry, perhaps you could also add a little bit about PhaseOne and how we came to be working together with C3Centricity.
Happy to, Denise. Our collaboration goes back almost 10 years. It's hard to believe. But when we first met Denise, she was Vice President of Consumer Excellence at Nestle at their global headquarters in Switzerland. In that position, it was Denise's responsibility to get the world's largest nutrition, health, and wellness company really more in tune with its consumers. Denise introduced a lot of best practices while at Nestle, but one in particular was a proprietary advertising test that incorporated PhaseOne's analytics that's still being used today, and that's really how we started working together.
Thanks, Terry. That certainly reminds me too just how long I've been a fan of PhaseOne, and obviously we're doing something right because we're still working together so well. Okay, so now that you know who we all are, let's get started. So today we're going to share with you the results of a really interesting analysis that PhaseOne conducted on global luxury watch communications. As I live in Switzerland, the watch industry is obviously very close to my heart. Some of you listening in today may actually work in the industry, whilst others may just have a passion for watches but actually work in a completely different business. Or maybe you're more interested in learning about the unique methodology used to analyze the advertising. Either way, I'm sure you'll get a lot out of the next half hour or so. Whilst I'm sure you found the executive summary of interest, I know from the responses we've been getting since I sent it out that many of you have questions about how the analysis was done or would like to know more about the actual results. We're going to get right into that in a moment, but I'd just like to tell you that we have a very special offer from PhaseOne at the end of the webinar, so make sure you stay to the end. They're proposing to everyone here the opportunity to try their unique and proprietary methodology at a significant discount, just for joining the webinar today. As I've mentioned, the webinar should last about 30 or 45 minutes, depending upon the number of questions we get. And by the way, if you have any questions, just add them into the comments box on the right-hand menu of your screen. I'll be keeping an eye on them, and we'll get Terry and Angelo to answer them at appropriate times during the webinar. Is that okay with everyone? Let's try the message function right now. Just add your name and country so we can see who we have on the line. Okay, just type in the comments box. Okay, I can see we have Kathy from the US, we have Rami from Dubai, Catherine from London, and Cecilia from Switzerland. Now, being in Switzerland, I know it's a bank holiday in Geneva today, so Cecilia, if you're based in Geneva, thanks for joining us. So, welcome to all of you. And without further ado, let me hand over to Terry and Angelo, who will take us through just what PhaseOne did.
Great. Without getting into really how the watch is actually made, so to speak, PhaseOne's approach to strategic communications is evidence-based. And that means we really begin by listening. We want to understand your goals. What specifically are you trying to achieve? Is it changing attitudes? Is introducing a new product? But then also understand the channels you're hoping to harness, or channel, whether it be print, TV, packaging, or across the board. Then, adhering to an objective, rigorous, and proprietary analytic process, we begin by breaking the communication into basic segments of meaning, and then identifying each element and idea within the communication in terms of content, style, and structure. We then assess the ability of each element and idea to accomplish specific communication goals, determining how well all the elements work together. This provides clients with unparalleled insights that reveal untapped messaging opportunities, allowing our clients to optimize their communications. Following this strict methodology uniquely positions PhaseOne to accurately identify what's working, not working, and most importantly, provide clients with actionable insights that ultimately drive measurable attitude and behavior change. The learning that we're going to be sharing with you today came about because Denise is based in Switzerland, the home of the global luxury watch industry. We had just completed and published the findings of our social media engagement study at the Advertising Research Foundation's National Conference in New York, and we're searching for another topic on which to focus. Since we've conducted research in over 44 different countries and published findings on global advertising, when Denise approached us on researching the global watch category with a focus on luxury, we felt it would be a study worth pursuing, primarily because this is an industry in which branding and what brands stand for is so important.
Thanks, Terry. So, Angelo, tell us more about the actual details of the study. How did you choose the brands that you looked at and the countries that were included in it?
Yeah, certainly. We started by identifying fashion lifestyle magazines targeting both men and women that were published here in the U.S. and throughout Europe and Asia. Then we supplemented that list with specific international-only publications. From there, we examined each of them and began pulling the advertising that was running. We did this in the spring of 2012 and then again in the spring of 2013 to be sure we had consistency and be able to capture any campaigns that had changed throughout that year. The original study included 16 brands across North America, Europe, and Asia that were running in those publications at that time. I should add, we only focused on print advertising, but our methodology really works on any form of communications.
Okay, I get it. So what you were trying to do is to cover a pretty wide range of possible messages from various brands in different countries around the world. So what did you find out?
Well, although we had chosen ads for many different markets around the globe, what surprised us was the similarity between them. For example, we found that brands tended to cluster into three segments creatively. And we placed them in these following categories to help us define our research: fashion brands, personal lifestyle brands, and luxury indulgence. However, as Terry will discuss, another cluster revealed itself throughout this research that I think you'll find very interesting.
Yeah, Angela makes a good point there. These three categories really define themselves. While we gave them the labels, the characteristics among the advertising within each of the categories were surprisingly similar. Almost price of entry to be in that cluster, which of course increases the challenge each brand faces to break through the clutter and to set itself apart. For example, brands within the fashion category. That includes brands like Swatch, Ice, Guess, Armani Exchange, Calvin Klein. They were primarily presented as an expression of self through fashion. They tended to highlight the visual aesthetics of the watch, and a majority of the ads highlight the watch's role as an accessory. For the watches in this cluster, it's the visual aesthetics, the color, the design, the role of the watch as an accessory in terms of style and its complement to clothing that's highlighted with the advertising. Now look at the Guess ad here. Interestingly, while the visual aesthetics are emphasized, traditional cues to luxury that you expect in watches like high quality material, diamonds, gold, silver, and craftsmanship are not the focus. This really does begin to help suggest to someone who's exposed to this advertising that the watches in this cluster may be more accessible than what we're going to find as we move into the other clusters. But the advertising in this cluster is cluttered with similar advertising layouts, young women modeling a style of fashion with the watch as an accessory or complement that enhances that style, or ads highlighting a variety of colors and watch styles offered by the brand. The bottom line for this cluster is that this is the challenging cluster in which to distinguish a brand because it relies so heavily on broad subjective consumer taste and fashion. The question that we have for brands that fall into this cluster is your watch as a fashion statement the only relevant way to position your brand to your core targets? Among the brands that fell into the specialized personal interest cluster, Tissot, Bell & Ross, Raymond Weil, Zenith, and Chanel, we found that a layer of specific personal or lifestyle interests were added. Personal interests such as aviation, music, travel, and a pampered lifestyle. They're all associated to the brand through imagery, and they play a role in communicating for whom the brand is for. Cues to quality, innovation, and craftsmanship were a bit stronger in this cluster than the first cluster. And from what we know about how communication works, these cues to innovation and craftsmanship helped us set the expectation that watches in this group will have a higher price. To distinguish a brand in this cluster, the image association and personal lifestyle interests must be clear. Let's take a look at Bell & Ross. Their advertising is strong at providing imagery associating the brand to the heritage of aviation. But another brand, Zenith, the image association to that specific personal interest is not as clear. The imagery of the ad here for Zenith may not be clearly associating the watch to aviation. In fact, that's another benefit of analytics. It's really that having that ability to identify the linkage from the copy and the imagery to the brand. Developing that distinctive image for a brand is one of the biggest challenges that we're seeing advertisers face today. Not only is it critical for the image for which a brand wants to stand to be distinctive from others in the category and be relevant to the key target audience, that advertising has to be created around the imagery and clearly linked to the brand. There cannot be any ambiguity around that image, and there can't be distracting elements or ideas that pull attention away from the overall image you're trying to create. And then as we move to the last cluster, for the brands that we've placed into this status luxury cluster, such as Rolex, Omega, Patek Philippe, these brands fall into what may be perceived as more traditional luxury. The presentations of the watches in these ads have a stronger super premium aura. The style and the content around the watches emphasizes high quality materials, gold, diamond, silver, quality craftsmanship and design. The communication also highlights that ownership of these watches provides exclusive status and indulgence in opulent luxury. But we also have to keep in mind that brands in this cluster didn't just appear overnight. Most of these brands, as you see, have very long-standing equity as a luxury brand. But the key then for brands that fall into this cluster is to keep what that brand stands for fresh and not fall into the trap of relying on equity alone. One way a brand in this group keeps their equity fresh is Omega. Omega associates specific lines with high-profile celebrities, like this one with Nicole Kidman. Patek Philippe, on the other hand, carries forward its generation-to-generation campaign with a female perspective. Here we see mother to daughter. One of the most interesting findings from the study was that the three categories were revealed again through the study of the advertising's content, style, and structure. But upon further research, we found that the brands in each cluster fell into a similar price range. For example, the fashion brands tended to be priced between $100 and $1,000 US, while those in the luxury status cluster had prices that ranged from $15,000 US and up. When we found this additional cluster, it really made us ask, is price driving the communication practices in the category? If so, it really runs the risk of brands being perceived as too much alike, with little setting the brands apart, or the brands are becoming niche brands, appealing only to those with specific lifestyle or images. The study clearly reveals for luxury brands that there is significant challenge to clearly differentiate within the category. But if you want to take your brand above the fray, increasing its appeal as being more worthy, the path is clear, as the characteristics of each cluster are clearly well defined. If exclusivity or a niche positioning is part of your strategy, then it's going to be critical to ensure that that personality of the brand is not only distinctive, but it is truly relevant to your target and firmly linked to your brand.
That's fantastic. That really gives a clear idea of the segments you've found. Would you be ready to take a few questions? Because we've got quite a few questions coming in there.
Sure, Denise. Be happy to.
Okay. First question from Brian. How would you recommend that a new watch brand communicates in order to distinguish itself? Great question, Brian.
It is a great question, Brian, and it is really a challenging question as it relates to this particular category, because there's two parts to that. I think what the study reveals is that there are some clear patterns within the category, depending on pricing. And if you fall into one of those pricing clusters, then your challenge is to identify perhaps what is that unique niche within fashion that you can own. But the place to start with that, Brian, is really to start with your target audience. Who is it you're hoping to appeal to, gain the understanding of them, and that's going to help drive the crafting of your messaging so you'll find that unique spot for yourself.
Okay, thanks, Terry. Question from Ahmed. Can you run the same type of analysis on our TV ads for our watches too? Absolutely,
Denise and Ahmed. The process is the very same. PhaseOne's analytics can be done on a vertical, on a single channel such as print or television. But most importantly, it's important to keep in mind that it will be, you need to understand how those different channels work together, how they complement each other, to ensure that both of your channels or all your channels are working against your strategy and supporting the brand idea.
Okay, thank you. Last question, next to last question, I've got one of the participants here who says they can't see the presentation on the screen. I don't know, could you try and share screen again? Maybe for some people it's not showing up.
We're looking into that now.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe it's Cecilia again in Geneva who's asking this, but they're seeing the the welcome thing, but they're not seeing the presentation. Okay, in the meantime.
Yeah. We will have the presentation available after today, Denise, as well. So we'll be happy to send that and make it available to attendees.
Yeah, and I suppose I should have mentioned at the beginning we are recording this, so we will be able to, everybody will be able to listen to the recording again afterwards. I've got a last question from Ruth, and actually it ties in well with the next part of the presentation, Terry. She says, my company works not only with watches, but other luxury goods too. Would your methodology work for those other categories, such as handbags or shoes?
Great question, Ruth, and the answer is yes. In phase one, we like to stay current with communication strategies around the world. And that's why we're always analyzing those campaigns that are really interesting and noteworthy and newsworthy. For example, we just finished a communication analysis for a hair care brand using television advertising in the country of Turkey. And that particular brand was having trouble with its messaging to its specific target audience. We've also completed an analysis for our company's global advertising campaign, and really with the core objective of helping them understand why some ads were working in one country and while the same ads did not work in another. And that really led to provide them with global best practices. And then, even for an energy company selling products in Russia and China, same product, same brand, but the messages used needed to be completely different. There our job was to ensure that the brand wasn't diluted and that in-country messaging was relevant to its target audiences. I think we may have mentioned already, but phase one is working over 44 different countries throughout its 30-year history.
Wow, it's certainly great to hear that you're working in all these exciting areas and countries around the globe. And those of us online today are primarily interested, however, in the luxury watch industry. Terry, you mentioned many brands and markets, but I'm sure most of the participants here would like to know what you think of their own advertising. How about doing an analysis of their ads and perhaps comparing them to those of the competitors? So I know you can't do this right now, but could you do that for the people listening in, say, the next week or month? And if so, what would it cost?
Of course.
Who wants to answer? Terry, Angelo?
I'll take this as Angelo. Of course we can, and we can work with your print ads. But again, just to reiterate, as we have several times today, is we can work with any form of communication in any channel. But let's focus on print ads. What we're going to offer to everyone here today in appreciation for their interest and time online is the opportunity to try our analytical process at a significantly reduced rates. So for everyone listening today, we're willing to run their first research with us at a 20% discount off our normal fees for a minimum of 3 ads.
Angelo, 20% discount sounds great. I'm sure a lot of us will be interested, but it's very generous, but what does that actually mean in dollar terms?
Good question, Denise, and I'll reply with a very Swiss answer. It depends. We recognize that there are people online from many different countries, and we also understand that thresholds of pain, if you will, on pricing does vary by country. But as you can see on the screen, we're going to give an example. For our standard rates for 3 ads is $34,200. But for this trial offer, we'll discount that down 20%, as I said, to $27,360. Now, the other thing about analytics is that our turnaround time on a typical job is 10 days, unlike, say, traditional research. And the deliverable for us is a detailed report presented via phone or online. But also as part of the package, we'll review any changes to the work that's done based on our guidance as part of that offer, and we'll provide a memo with any additional comments to make sure that what we were recommending was executed.
Angelo, that's certainly a great deal and a very different sort of service from the the standard copy testing and CAFE app testing or online testing that I see so many of us doing today. Obviously, you're not going to be able to offer this to everybody for always. How long is this offer going to be open? And I know some of us will certainly have to check budgets or go back to the boss before buying. So how long will you keep the offer open for?
We'd like to keep it open until next Friday. I believe that's September 13th. However, we do understand that not everybody's working on a campaign in the next 7 days or 10 days. But so what we really like to drive, if there is an interest on your part, is to contact us by Friday, and then we'll work out timing, when your campaign is going to happen, let's say through the rest of the year, and work out the special pricing for you. So really, our goal is to drive interest. If you're interested, to give us a ring or send us an email by next week.
Okay, thanks, Angelo. Before we end, perhaps a few more questions. Are you both open for a few additional comments from people listening in?
Love to.
Okay, Chili says, so what I just heard you say is that if I have 3 or 5 concepts, you can help me determine which are the best 2, for example, to actually test or develop further. Is that right?
Absolutely, Philippe. And in fact, what we would not only do is help you select the strongest, but we can give you guidance to optimize it before you ever put it into a quantitative sort of test.
Okay. Sounds good. I hope that satisfies Philippe. If not, add a comment. Marie from Belgium, what about collateral material, point of sale or packaging? Is the process the same for these communication materials? Because you've only talked about print and TVC today.
Yes, the process is the very same, and we can do deep dive on a single piece of point of sale or collateral material, whether it be sales brochures or things you might use in the field with your retail. But then you can also do what we call create a mosaic of your communications, understanding that each piece of communication really becomes a single stone in your broader mosaic of the picture you're trying to create for your brand and the story you're trying to tell, and really give you a great snapshot of how all of them are working together.
Great. So in fact, any type of communication material can be run through the PhaseOne process. That's what you're saying, yeah?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Great. Okay. Next question. George. Oh, I love this one. How accurate is your process? For those of us that typically use qual or quant to test our communications, we know what to expect with them. But what can we really expect from PhaseOne? Like it, George.
That's not a new question. Thank you, George. I see 2 parts of that question in reality. One is around accuracy and then what do I really expect. The accuracy level of PhaseOne is uncannily accurate. As you saw from the sort of abstract demo that we provided earlier, it is an analytic process. Even though we have experience over 44 different countries, we're not going to go into those countries and talk to your target audience. Instead, we're going to apply these analytics to the communication. And it has been proven to be 75 up to over 80% accurate in actually forecasting the results you would get either in market or through quant testing. Which is a little better what you can even say for focus groups, which there are always disclaimer there is that it is not predictable about ultimate results in market or quant testing. So the accuracy of those insights at a very early stage is extremely high. But then really what do you get? It becomes a discussion with you where we outline through what our analysis has found in terms of the core strengths of the communication, those things you want to keep, as well as where there may be some obstacles in these early stages that you might want to address as you move forward, with recommended actions, recognizing that you and your advertising agency and your creative teams are the ones who will make the final decisions and implement the changes. But we do give that direction about areas to focus on as you make revisions moving forward.
Thank you, Terry. Very complete answer. And George, thanks for the question, because I can tell you from personal experience, I too wondered about that, because we're all used to copy testing and online ad testing and such like, but this is such a unique methodology. We're always a bit scared of changing or trying it out because we don't really know what to expect. But by the sound of it, and again from my own personal experience, I think you get more than you do with a standard test. Time for one last question. Juan from Brazil. Okay, you've talked a lot about communications, but what about using PhaseOne to help develop strategy? Oh, golly. How is PhaseOne used in the early stages of communications development? Oh, great question, Juan. Harry?
Yeah, and one, that is a great question. And as you can see from the discussion and the findings, even from the study we just talked about, strategy is so critical because strategy is going to drive the whole format and the message that you'll be delivering around your brand, whether it be what Petit Philippe is doing around generation to generation, or how Guess is trying to position itself as a fashion brand. So strategy is core. PhaseOne has a strategy development tool called Beacon that really does work with our customers, folding in knowledge from 7 different areas that have to be examined that we found over our 30 years of experience that are critical to understand in terms of developing a core strategic theme against which a brand can then build its messaging. It is a very succinct and structured process that works in partnership with our clients. And the outcome of that, again, is a thematic idea that then can be calibrated across channels as well, even across various targets, whether those targets be different segments within your target public or a target being your business retailer to your consumer, so that there's that thread of consistency across your messaging.
Thanks, Terry. And thanks everyone for questions. We're running out of time. I did want to keep it to between 30 and 45 minutes. So perhaps if anyone does have any further questions, and I see quite a few there on the list, they should contact you. They could contact you directly, I suppose, after the webinar, Terry.
Yes.
We'll share the emails, I think, is the best idea in a little minute. Angelo, I think you wanted to add something about PhaseOne's website?
Yes, thank you. Our website, as you can see, is www.phaseone.net. So in addition to this recording that we'll post in a few days, you can also find articles and white papers, specifically, for example, the white paper on the social media engagement study that we did. I think you would find that really interesting, as well as some articles on that. We also have some articles on storytelling, the use of analytics to drive persuasion, as well as a variety of topics on the PhaseOne blog. So please feel free to visit that. There's a lot of valuable information on that.
Thanks, Angelo. And perhaps as a complement to all of that material, I should mention this on my own website, C3Centricity.com. You saw the homepage during my introduction, but have a look at it, because there's a library there too with loads of articles, videos, and there's also a whole section of quotes, because I certainly am a fan of quotes, and I find they make great additions to presentations and reports, and they help to make a point come out more strongly. In fact, one of my favorite quotes, and it's quite relevant today, is from Charles Darwin. It's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent. It's those most responsive to change. And as I said, it seems appropriate to everybody listening. Are you ready to change the way you understand your communications? Are you prepared to try a unique tool that turns messages into data? It's certainly time to break out of the habit of multiple copy testing, which I, for one, am definitely not a fan of. If we test earlier in communications development, and we'd save a significant amount of time and money, instead of working on 3, or I've even heard clients talk about 5 different ads that they bring to fruition, and it's just before airing that they end up testing them. So I think it certainly sounds a great idea to test your ideas earlier on in development and to try out PhaseOne's unique methodology. So, Terry, Angelo, we've come to the end of the webinar. If people would like to contact you about the offer or to discuss other opportunities where they believe you can help, how do they get a hold of you?
Go ahead. Our emails are up on the screen right now. For Terry, if you have a specific analytic question, or for me, Angelo for the talk about the offer, or Phase One in general, please feel free to email me. My information can also be found on the website.
Thanks, Angelo. Just for those of you, because there seem to be quite a few people that have problems with their screens, the email addresses are terryvillines@phaseone.net or angeloponzi@phaseone.net. And if anybody wants to contact me, Denise @c3centricity.com. But all of us, you can find, if you've taken a note of our website, you should be able to contact us directly through there if you've any problem with finding the emails. So it just remains for me to thank you both for your time today, as well as for being wonderful partners of C3Centricity and for being a partner to me for well over 10 years. Thanks to everyone listening for staying until the end of the webinar. Don't forget to contact Terry, Angelo, or myself if you'd like more information, either on the Global Luxury Watch Communication Study or any other area. Thanks, everyone, and have a lovely day or evening. Goodbye.